Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into another FamTyme Talk show. My name is Purvi Sonia Dave, and I talk to some amazing parents, educators, healthcare professionals, and coaches in the space about everyday family challenges and what we can do to help more families have a more happy, healthy, strong bond with one another. And today I have an amazing, amazing guest, Brian Schulman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Purvi. It's so wonderful to be here with you.
Thank you. Can you please share a little bit with our community about your background?
Yeah, sure. I am a husband, married to my wife for the last 20 years, just this July. I am a dad of two teenagers. I have an 18-year-old, well, actually, almost 19-year-old daughter who's starting her first year of college in next week, actually.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I have a 16, almost 17-year-old son who starts his junior year in high school next week.
Amazing. Happy 20th anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then from a business perspective, yeah, I've been building and growing startups for the last 20 years. I've been on LinkedIn every day for, believe it or not, for the last 15 and a half years, creating content in any way that you could, because that early in the days you couldn't. Um, and I'm on a number of boards. I advise startups and founders. I am a founder and CEO of Voice Your Vibe, which is a company that teaches you how to tell a story that people will fall in love with. They work with brands, they work with executives all across the world, do speaking engagements and lots of other stuff too. So,
Wow, quite the resume there. You have
well,
your
I
plate
think
full.
yeah, it is, right? But I think it's relevant just because I think, since we're talking to parents, right? And that is your audience, we're all busy. We all have crazy lives. And so I think it's important to kind of set the stage for what we're about to talk about, because even though I do have as much as I do on my plate, being a parent is the next to being married to my wife and best friend is the most incredible gift I've ever been given and the most important thing to me. So,
Yes, it is quite an important task, to say the least. So I know you've been quite open about your own upbringing and your own challenges of what you experienced when you came into this earth. Can you give us a short little synopsis of that so people have a frame of reference?
yeah, I can. And I wasn't really planning on doing this, but I think I'm going to, because I think it would help give a frame of reference um, from another voice. And the voice is actually my daughter. So let me frame this real quick. I've only done this a couple times, and I usually break down every time I do, so just bear with me. But I had been sitting in this chair, and I don't know if your audience is going to be seeing this or just hearing this, but I'm sitting in my home office, and you see a ton of pictures behind me on the wall. These are all pictures that my kids, or my monkeys as I call them, have made for me over the years. And I just get the biggest smile on my face every time I walk here and see this. So I'd been sitting in here, and this was January of 2018. And my daughter walks in with a couple pieces of paper, and she just hands it to me and says, "I want you to read this." And she sits down in the chair next to me, and I had stopped what I was doing, and I had no idea what it was. And at the top of it, it says four-way speech contest essay. And so I'm like, oh, she wants me to read something that she's got to, turn in for school. So I'm going to read this to you because I think it answers your question in more ways than one.
Sure,
So,
yeah,
so
definitely.
again, just bear with me as I try and do
Yeah.
this. So it's entitled Live to Inspire.
Wow.
This story about to be told is about an extraordinary man, now 42 years young, who accepted all the obstacles life had thrown at him. Now, I know you may be thinking that everyone has different obstacles they just overcome throughout their lifetime. So how is he different from you and I? Well, what makes this particular man different from you and I is the tactic he used when faced with these obstacles. What makes him different from you and I is that he took these obstacles and use them to help make a difference and inspire others to never let life get in the way of their greatness and achievements. What makes us different from everyone else is not the obstacles life throws at us, but what we do when we're faced with these obstacles. Will you choose to accept defeat, or will you choose to persevere? On May 13th, 1975, a child was born at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. This child was born 3 months early, weighing just 1.5 pounds, and because of this, he was a premature baby. During the early 80s, he was diagnosed with a neurological disorder called Tourette's syndrome, which is a type of tic or twitch, involuntary repetitive movements and vocalization type of disorder. And one day at camp, the counselor had to take this young boy to a payphone, tears streaming down his face, to call his mother because his neck was constantly snapping to one side over and over and over again without being able to stop. He went to various doctors who performed countless medical examinations to try and find a cure for his disorder. Every doctor said the same thing. He's fine. He'll grow out of it. One day in 5th grade, he stood up in front of his entire class and shared with them what Tourette's syndrome was and what living with Tourette's syndrome was like. A huge weight was lifted off his shoulders once he shared his story with his classmates. While terrified, though it generated many supporters, whether they be friends, parents, or teachers. Finally, a specialist at UCLA had told him that he would never be able to get rid of this disorder alone, and suggested that he take a special drug called clonidine to help with these tics and twitches. Unfortunately, with the drug came horrible side effects. He made a conscious decision to not take the pills and to try and master his condition through focus and determination. After a while, the tics started to diminish and eventually went away completely. Well, for the most part. No one knows what life has in store for them. All we can do is live until we're forced to face an obstacle in which we must make a choice to either overcome or accept defeat. The Rotary 4-way test demonstrates how one person can make a difference in the lives of others. With the experiences this boy had to face came a life lesson. With determination, perseverance, and support from others, anything can happen. Now at 42 years young, this man chooses to use his story to make a difference in others' lives by inspiring people in times of uncertainty. He implements the Rotary's motto, service before self, by finding the light in those who cannot find it in themselves, supporting them through their tough obstacles. He helps lift people's spirits in hoped in times of hopelessness and despair. He helps people turn their ideas and dreams into realities. He helps build people from the ground up in hopes that they too will one day share their stories with others. He makes a difference in this world each and every day, which inspires others to make a difference as well. Who, may you ask, is this man? Well, he is my father. Out of all the lives he's made a difference in, I believe he's made the biggest difference in mine. He inspires me. I'm almost done.
It's okay. It's beautiful.
He inspires me to never give up on what I believe in, to always do what makes me happy, but most importantly, to always live every day as if it were the last, because we're never guaranteed a tomorrow. As Gandhi once said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Making a difference in the lives of others is my dad's change. What will be yours?
Wow. Oh my. You have done such a remarkable job, and what you have taught your kids, it's amazing, through your own journeys and how you persevered. And I've learned so much from you sharing your experience and helping me understand how to deal with my adversities. And
we also go through a lot in life, you know. I think what's interesting is I remember one of the very first conversations you and I had, and you had put a video out getting really vulnerable and getting comfortable being uncomfortable and sharing a really, really personal part of your story in your life. And I know how hard that was for you to do. And we had gotten on the phone, I think, like right after that.
Mhm.
And I told you that how proud of you I was because I know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to hold on to something for so long and not want to talk about it and not feel you need to talk about it and scared to death to talk about it. And what are other people going to think when you do talk about it, right? All of the things that go through your head because I mean, I shared my story on LinkedIn video for the very first time on my very first video at the end of 2017. And I can count on one hand the number of times I've ever had talked about any of that stuff because I didn't feel I had a voice or a story or a, you know, that mattered or that would affect anybody. In my mind, it was like I was different and weird, and I didn't want to be different and weird. I just wanted to be normal because I was always trying to find a way to fit in anywhere I could. I dealt with a lot of adversity. I dealt with a lot of bullying growing up. It was hard. Um, and but I, you know, I learned along the way, especially in my journey, specifically in on LinkedIn, because that's where I found my courage um, and inspiration to want to share my story and to
Mhm.
want to use my voice that I didn't really think I had. Um, so you know, it's I just everyone has a voice and a story that matters and has bravery and courage to be able to share that. And I think the reality is that we're all human beings. You know, we want to help people, we want to relate to people, and by nature we want to be kind.
Mhm.
Some people just have fallen down rabbit holes they can't get out of and they're just stuck, you know, and they haven't found that person or those people that inspire them to, you know, find that courage within them to break out of it, you know, and to
Mhm.
talk and to share. And you know, we're talking about parents and kids, and gosh, I mean, kids go through so much. It's so hard to be a kid, you know, um, especially in school, you know, because there's just everybody wears everything on their sleeves, and um, I think those socialization from that perspective. I mean, honestly, in my viewpoint, pre college, like school is just learning how to live. It's learning how to live in the real world. It's learning how
Mhm.
to socialize. It's learning how to deal with all the different types of people that there are in the world, how to communicate, how to build relationships, right? It's the life stuff that I think matters because that's what you know, you once you're out of school, you're in quote unquote real life and you have to understand how to do that stuff. And so to me, like that's the most important part. Don't get me wrong. Education is key. Absolutely. I mean, I have a degree in psychology. I went to college, etc. My kids will likely be doing, well, my daughter is, and my son will likely be doing the same. Of course, I'm an advocate for that. But we learn from everything, right? Life is about learning. It's about
Mhm.
learning from all the people we interact with, and um, we as parents, you know, sometimes parents make a choice to become a parent. Other times they don't. They just, you know, and when I say parent, I'm not. It doesn't matter whether you're a birth parent, an adoption parent, an acting parent. Like you're playing a role in somebody's life that has such an incredible impact.
Mhm.
And you know, when you think about it, you mentioned something when we started talking. Like one of the hardest things in the world. Like our job is to bring good human beings in this world and to make sure that they have good hearts and that they can take care of themselves and that they can stand up for themselves and they're there to help other people and make an impact and Lord willing they'll take care of us when we can't, right?
Yes, the tables do
um
turn.
yeah, but it's the lowest paying job in the world, right? We're all leaders, we're all CEOs, if you will, that for life. Like it is a life thing. And again, sometimes you make a choice to do that, other times you don't. But you step up and you make a choice to do that because life is so incredibly precious,
Mm.
you know, and and you never know what's going to happen. I mean, in a snap of a second, it can be gone. God knows I know that. I mean, I fought for every breath to make it into this world. And so, I mean, I know every breath is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so easy for us to take that for granted, you know?
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you said you stood up in front of your class when you were that young,
Mm.
what gave you the courage to be so open and vulnerable to share about your Tourette syndrome? And because kids can be mean, and they like, what's wrong with you, and tease, and
Oh
what
yeah.
advice would you give a parent, or even, young kids today that may be experiencing some sort of disability or difficulties that they're experiencing?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one thing is that it's not a disability. It's a superpower. You're differently abled. And the fact
Love
is that we're all weird and unique. And there's an acronym. It's for weird, wonderful, exciting. Oh God, I'll have to find it. I'll send it to you.
it. Okay.
It's really good. I actually made a video. It's probably been like 6 or 8 months. I just haven't posted it around it, but I think it's great. And I think it's just remembering that we're all flawsome, right? We all
Mm,
have flaws.
I love
Every
it.
single human being on the planet, we all have our flaws, right? Or what we look at as flaws. But
Mm,
we are all amazing and awesome human beings. And so embrace your flawsomeness, you know what I'm saying? But to your question, look, my mom is my genuine hero. My mom has been there with me through every single thing I've ever gone through. She's
mm,
there. Yeah, I literally, there aren't enough words and breath in my lungs in my life to explain how incredible this woman is,
wow.
uh, for so many reasons. But she was always my rock, you know. And you talk about kids and teasing and all that, and I think this is important. We talk about the importance of being there, being around, your presence. Um, our children, and I say that in broad, as parents, we say a lot of things to our children. We try to educate them, and with the hopes that they'll listen, right? With the hopes that they'll learn, and that they may not encapture all of it, but that they'll take the bites that
Mm,
hopefully that are important, they'll remember. We don't want our kids to step in holes. We want to try and steer them around them, because we've stepped in before and we know what can potentially happen. As a parent, we're always trying to guard our kids from fear and failure and pain and all of that, right? And sometimes, though, we have to, and I say we, reflecting back as kids, like, we have to step in those holes, and as parents sometimes we have to hold back and let them do that. That's really hard. That's
mm,
really hard. But I'd come home crying from school, saying to my mom, and this is, I don't know, I had to be in grade school or something, why does nobody like me, and why does everybody keep making fun of me? Because in my case, like, I didn't know what I was doing. Because that's the thing with Tourette's. They're uncontrollable, and usually you're not aware that you're even doing them.
mm,
So my mom took me into the bathroom. She had this big mirror, and we sat down, and she said, "I want to show you something." And she did every tick and twitch I was doing at the time. Now, just so you're aware, when I talk about ticks and twitches, and I'm kind of sidebarring for a second, but I think it's important. Um, I was somersaulting from room to room, jumping up and down, making lots of different auditory noises, lots of facial expressions. I mentioned intense neck twitches, wrist flicking, um, and many other things. And a lot of times they'd commingle. And so she did a bunch of this stuff, and then she said, "All right, I want you to let it rip. Whatever you've got in you, just let it go." Because I
mm,
would try and hold it in, and the problem was, when I did that, it would just make it worse. It
mm,
was basically like a volcano waiting to explode, right?
right.
So I would do that, and then and then my mom, she said, "All right," and then she'd put on some music, and we'd start dancing in the bathroom. And this is my mom, okay? And so when I talk about the importance of showing up and being present, and um, actions speaking louder than words, okay? Um, her being there meant reflecting back meant everything to me. You know, sometimes your kids just need a hug.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they just need to hear it's okay. You know, you want to cry, you want to get angry, you want to laugh, you want to, whatever. I'm here. You know, as parents, I think the most important thing we can do is listen, and that can be really hard. It can be really hard, especially when you want to help. I mean, I'm a want to help kind of dad. Like, I always want to make things better. It's just in my nature. And it can be hard sometimes to stop yourself from doing something, right, where you want to help, where that's not what they need. All they need is for you to listen.
Just be there.
And yeah, just to be there. So back to your question, I said all that because I know my mom was a huge part of, my getting brave and courageous to be able to do something like that. I think the other side of that too is, with as much fun of as I was made of, and, dealing with different types of bullying and whatnot, I think I was at a point where I needed everyone to know that I wasn't contagious and we're going to catch this thing. And there was a name for what this was. And it wasn't just, I'm some weird ass kid. It's, I've got stuff that's wrong with me. And this is it. Right. And I think when there's a level of awareness, things start to change. And I did notice that. And I think the other thing too, Pervy, is like, so my point is, be there for your kids. You don't have to have all the answers. I have met some incredible parents on LinkedIn. I have met parents of kids that have Tourette's on LinkedIn. I have some of my very dear friends that I've met on LinkedIn that have Tourette's. Literally, I can count on one hand the number of times I had met people that had Tourette's. And here I go meeting all these people on LinkedIn. And I've had conversations I had this one mom, she had an 11-year-old son. And it was in the comments, Jake Melton, my brother, my Twitch brother on LinkedIn. We met on LinkedIn, and he's a very dear, dear friend in my heart. And he had done a post of him on LinkedIn. It was probably a 30-second video. No words.
Yeah, I saw that.
He just hit record, and he recorded himself twitching. Like, that is really, really brave of him. I know that was the hardest thing he's ever done. And I was so incredibly proud of him. And the comments that he shared with it, and all of the people that showed up, and there were so many people that showed up. Oh, look at the puppy. So many people that showed up, again, parents of or kids. And I started responding to some of them and said, if you ever want to get on the phone and chat or get on video chat, I would love to chat with you. And my mom, I know, would be happy to do the same. Because I know my mom went to sleep so many nights crying, wondering, how can I help my baby? She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to make it better. And it killed her to not be able to do that. Right. So I got on the phone with, actually on Zoom with this mom, and I had said, hey, listen, if your son ever wants to talk, I'm here. I've been through everything he's going through and what he will go through. So, and so I got on with her, and she started by saying, well, he's shy, and, I think he's a little uncomfortable talking about it. And I said, that's totally fine. I really understand. So we can talk. And so we ended up talking for about a half an hour. We had a really good conversation together. And I shared some of my story, and she asked some questions, and we talked through it, and just some things that he was going through and where he was. And I shared some thoughts, and she wound up saying, hold on. And she called him, and he came downstairs, and the two of them were sitting together on the couch, and we were talking and just started having a conversation. He started to get a little bit more comfortable and asked some questions, and just the most incredible young man. And she sent me a note after and said, I can't tell you how much
Wow.
that meant to me and to him. So when I say that everyone has a voice and a story that matters, whether you've been through something someone else has gone through or not, as a parent, as a child, sharing our stories can help people in ways that we never thought possible.
Yeah, there's so much power in that when most of the time, many of us are suffering in silence by ourselves, feeling like nobody would ever understand, that you're the only person. But then once you start opening up and like you did, sharing your story, then other people can feel like, oh, wow, I'm not alone in this journey, and I can talk to other people and find better solutions and how to help my child cope with whatever that they're experiencing, and normalize it, not make them feel like that they're anything different from any other child out there, and that they're just as good as everybody else, that they have a superpower. And I love how you said it's not a disability, it's just it's a superpower, it's a differently abled, and
It's a gift. It's a gift. Like I say that now, okay? I didn't realize that until 40 something years later in my life, right? Everyone, I think that inflection point happens at different points in your life, but it also matters who's in your life and who comes into your life that makes you think about it differently, right? Because there was a switch that flipped in my mind too, that I didn't want anyone to feel the way I felt. I didn't want anyone to treat someone the way that I was treated. I wanted to give out the opposite. This was like pre-high school, I think. I wanted to be a giver of good and light and positivity, encouragement, and lifting others up. I wanted them to feel good when we were together. I wanted them to leave feeling better, and so I think it's interesting too, Per, because like I was at VidCon actually just recently, which is the largest video conference in the world, in Anaheim. But the year before was my first year, and I had come out of the very first ever LinkedIn Video Creator Summit, which Goldie Channon put on, and there was my friend Chantel Sumis, who is another incredibly amazing woman and mother, differently abled. You need to have her on your show because her story just, my God, it's incredible. And like, it's just really incredible. And she had walked out and she said, "Hey, you guys need to go next door and share your story." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" And she said, Viacom has a pop-up. I'm just grabbing my other earbuds because my AirPods are going to die here. She said, Viacom is doing a pop-up, and it's called Generation Change, #GenerationChange. And it's, what do you want the next generation to hear? What do you want them to know? And I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. So I went next door, and I went in with Quentin Q, who's another family friend from LinkedIn. And he calls me his LinkedIn dad. He's like that's how much in different age we are. But like he says he always feels better when we're around each other. He feels more at ease, or
I think you have a gift with that.
Yeah, he's such an incredible human being. I love him so much. Anyway, so there was a sign where you hold up, it says #GenerationChange, and it's what do you stand for in a couple words. And I put voiceless and differently abled because I was voiceless and I am differently abled. And then you go next door and they say, if you want to get interviewed, you have to sign a waiver and all that. they would interview you. And I'm talking full setup, lights, camera, action. There were people in there. It was really intimidating, to be honest. So Q goes up and he does this thing, and I'm like, all right, you're good. You're going to be awesome. And he was kind of nervous. I'm like, dude, you're going to rock it. And he did great. And he comes back and I'm like, okay, look, I'm terrified right now, but I feel like I need to do this. I feel like there's a reason I walked in here, and I need to share part of my story. I'm like, will you stay? He's like, yeah, absolutely. I got you. So they ask you a bunch of very random questions. And so there was no rhyme or reason. I was trying to figure out if there was a rhyme or reason because I was scared. So at least I'd have some kind of, something to balance on. And there wasn't. And they said, what do you want this next generation to hear, the kids of the future? I felt like I was 13 years old again in my Tourette's body, and I was scared to death. And I said to myself, what would I want to hear? And I said, and I started to share part of my story in it, but I said that you matter, that you're loved, that you have a voice, and that you have a story, and you can do anything you want to do. And other things too. But, I think as parents, again, it's the toughest job in the world, but it's the most incredible and most rewarding experience we can ever have. So back to your question, which was, how can parents, what can they do? How can they support, right? Being there for your kids is the most important thing. It's the one thing that you can do. We're all busy. We all have to support our families. I mentioned all the things I'm involved in. I will tell you, Purvi, the one thing that I have always kept in my mind ever since I started my journey, I always wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be my mom in dad form. Like she was, it just, and I always loved kids. I babysat kids growing up. I loved kids. And, I loved making them laugh and smile, and just like, what gifts those are that we all have, and so, but the one thing that I always made a choice of was I said, I wanted to be a dad, and I wasn't going to not be around for everything. I wasn't going to miss a thing. The sleepless nights, the teeth coming out, oh my gosh, like just every parent out there, the horrors from birth until, it's like every parent I talk to is like, when we talk about how old their kids are, they're like, oh my God, you're way ahead of us. Tell me it gets easier. I said, no, it doesn't get easier. It just changes. What was hard before is now easy. What you didn't know was now hard. And then it just keeps evolving. It just changes. It's not easy. It's never easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's we grow and learn. And by the way, like there's no handbook for this thing, there's no right or wrong answers. Like the best thing we can do as parents is just love our kids. Like it's the one thing in the world, if you do anything, just love your kids, because that speaks volumes. We are examples for our kids in the actions we take. You come home and you kiss your spouse, or you tell them you love them, or what, your kids see that. That it sets an example for what they may want, or what they see is what they know, right? And so what they know is then what they want. And so again, you set that example on that and look, everybody's environment is different. Some environments they're not great, they're hard. You do the best that you can with what you've got. Again, the most important thing is those kids that you've got, and just letting them know you love them. And it, whether you tell them you love them, whether you show them that you love them, that's the most important thing. So if you've got kids that are going through stuff, whatever it may be, let them know you love them. Just give them a hug. If they need to cry, just be there for them to cry. If they want to get angry, let them get angry, as long as they're not going for anything sharp or hurting anybody else. I remember my mom would tell me, she's like, you want to throw something against the wall, you want to hit me, or you want to scream into a pillow or whatever, go for it.
Yeah, having that
Yeah.
outlet and letting them express what they're feeling is so important, because it's amazing. I'm part of so many parenting groups, and a lot of parents on there, they'll say that I'm not getting the support from my partner, that my child is acting out of anxiety and depression, and their partner is more like, they're just faking it. They're not, they're manipulating you. They're not, and it becomes a battle when you don't have a supporting partner. And I'm wondering, what's your advice in those types of situations where one parent is trying to be there, be supportive, be there for their child, but the other one is more tough love, like, they're faking it, they're manipulating you, don't buy into this. So and the child is still not able to get the help that they need and how to deal with their anxiety and depression that they're going through. I'm just curious, if you've ever experienced anything like that, or if you know of any advice that we can guide, some of these parents.
Yeah, it's a really good question. You can hear me, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just had to change my AirPods here. Yeah, I think it's knowing that you can get help outside of your home. Like, if you can't, as a child, if you aren't able to, if you're having a hard time, right? You have teachers at school, there's so many people that can help, right? It's speaking up. As a parent, the same thing. Um, I'll actually, I know I'm crazy with the stories, but I'll give you another quick example, and then additional bites to that in terms of what you can do. Because my mom went through that too. She didn't know what to do. She needed help, and she didn't know who or whatever. I went to therapy for years, and it's like my mom going to doctors. We went to doctors over and over and over and over again, and everyone, as they shared, kept saying the same thing. Oh, he's fine, he'll grow out of it, whatever. My mom's like, the hell you say? There's something wrong with my kid, and I'm going to find someone who has an answer, and I'm going to keep going until I do. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, right? But depending on what's happening, you have so many different ways that you can reach out, right? The internet is an incredible gift that we have in terms of information. You can search for anything. So many people share stories of what they've gone through, or how they've gotten help, or whatever it may be, right? And there's societies, organizations wrapped around so many different differently ablednesses.
Another term.
But yeah, exactly, right. But but your question brings up again an example where I'm walking through the halls in high school. I walk by one of my classmates, and he does like 3 different ticks at one time, and I'm like, I know without a question in my mind he's got Tourette's, no doubt, and he has no idea whatsoever. He just thinks there's something wrong with him, and I'm sure, and his parents, right? As parents, you don't know what's wrong with your child. You can't help. You feel paralyzed, right? I went home to my mom and I said, Mom, I have no doubt in my mind that my classmate has Tourette's. And we went through this kind of process of having conversations with him and his parents. And it was really uncomfortable for them because, it's hard to hear these things. But you want to find answers. And we had sent him to the specialist at UCLA that I went to, right? And anyway, point being is, they then knew what it was. They weren't scared to death anymore because they knew what it was. They knew there was a way to be able to help. Thing is with Tourette's is it's not curable. It's more prevalent in boys versus girls, and usually you grow out of it around 17, 18, or it sticks with you. I still have Tourette's. Most people just don't know because you wouldn't know what to look for because it's so minimal.
You
but
learn
just
to manage it.
yeah, I say I learned to control something that was uncontrollable. I have many different mechanisms that I've used over the years as natural calming mechanisms. Music, dancing, comedy, which is interesting because it's actually very common across those that I've met with Tourette's, either one or multiple. I would sit in the dark as a kid for years and playing the piano, and just would feel like I was in another world. I literally felt like I was in another body. I wasn't twitching and ticking. And I think the reason is because I was in this zone. I was so focused on what I was doing that everything else wasn't in my mind. Same thing when it came to dancing too, where I would, and I didn't think about this later until after my degree and such in psychology, but when I thought about it, it was when we dance, we're acting weird, we're making noises, we're dancing, you know, we're moving in ways that we usually don't, right? I think I probably felt normal in a sea of people that felt weird because that was my everyday, right? And then comedy was more of a, well, I'm already weird, I might as well be funny. And I related to a lot of physical comedians. So growing up, I grew up well, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s and whatnot, like physical comedians, you know. I love the Three Stooges and Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor and Sam Kinison and younger comedians at that time like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams. God, so many, but I didn't even think about it until I realized they do so much stuff that I do normally, except, you know, they're making people laugh. So anyway, just know that you have so many resources at your fingertips, you know, in terms of getting help, you know. And by the way, like, if you don't ask, you won't get help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with reaching your hand out and saying, I don't know what to do. I don't want to see my child suffer anymore. I need to find a way to help, you know? And when I mentioned I went through therapy for years, that didn't help me. Like, all I needed was my mom. The therapy thing was not my bag. But I think the other side is, you know, we talk about our surroundings, right? In my case, my mom she tried to have as many play dates as possible, right? Because she wanted me to be around as many kids as possible. And she wanted me to try and find my tribe. And it wasn't easy, you know. There were some people, because I didn't know who was making fun of me or who wasn't, because there was a lot of tongue in cheek that would happen too, even with friends. And I knew they loved me, you know, but still, like with the jabs, sometimes it's really, you know, you're going to do that. Okay. I still love you anyway. But I think socialization is really important for kids. So activities are a great thing. Group activities, whether it's getting together and one kid or groups of kids or you know, soccer or some type of sport or some type of activity, whatever it is, find something that they have a love for and interest in. That also changes the dynamic of things. When I talk about there's many different ways to help, that's one of those ways. It doesn't have to be I need to go talk to a doctor or, you know, what have you. It could just be they're reaching out and they want friends, you know, or maybe it's changing that environment, you know. So organized type of activities for kids are always a great thing. Try them out. Ask your kids, hey, you know, what gets you excited? I just had this conversation recently with my son. I'm like, you know, because he does all sorts of stuff. And he's absolutely brilliant. I love my kids. I'm such a proud papa. I could talk about them every day, all day. And he's brilliant naturally. My daughter has to work for every single inch. They're both straight A students. They're incredible. Like, I don't have that gift. They got that from my wife. But with my son, he can get bored easily because he is so brilliant. And so he loses interest in things, and, you know, he'll flop from one thing, whatever. And there's some things he's taken interest in and hold on to, like being a musician, which I actually am as well. And, you know, he plays lacrosse, which he's doing now for a couple of years or whatever. But there's stuff he's tried that he tried, and yeah, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And that's okay too. You know, I bounce back and forth on that kind of stuff, because I think part of it is make a commitment. If you find something that you have an interest in and a love for, make that commitment, right? My daughter wanted to be a cheerleader. This was like 5th grade. She had first time it ever had come up. I'm like, this is a really big commitment. You have there's a lot of time you have to put in this, and it was travel type stuff. And I'm like, you know, forget the money part. Like, it takes a big commitment. And I said that would take a big commitment on us too, because we'd have to get you everywhere you need to go, practices and competitions and traveling and all that. I said, but I'm gonna tell you what, this is something I know that you have an interest in. Like, you're actually excited about this, and you came to us to tell us, I will be all in with you. I will be blinged up like Liberace. I will dance like a lunatic on stage at competitions with other cheer dads, and I will support you however I can. I think the support part is the most important thing. So just have a conversation with your kids and see what gets them excited. What are they passionate about? They may not have an answer, which is then where you go and, you know, you throw stuff out there and say, hey, maybe this, would you be interested in trying that? Right. And it's okay if they try it and they don't like it. That's where I was saying where it can be a double-edged sword, right? It's like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, commit to it for a year or something, or commit to it for a season or whatever. But depending on your scenario, right, that may not be the right solution, and that's okay. I think it's just starting. Ask the question. What do you like? What would get you excited? You know, what would you like to do with friends if you could do that? Or, you know, whatever it is, and foster that curiosity. You know, foster, oh, I like to go to the movies with my friends. Great. Let's schedule more play dates for you and your friends to go to the movies, or you want to go do brownies, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think communication is key in having that outlet open and letting them know if there's any problems. You're always welcome to talk to us and let us know, because when that door is closed is when the child feels like that they don't have any outlet, and they may go on paths that may cause them more harm than good. So the best thing, I think, for most parents, you know, if their child is facing anxiety or depression, I mean, I've seen many parents where they say that they don't get the support from their spouse or their partner, and it becomes a challenge. And there's a difference in parenting styles, and where you come to meet one another and saying, okay, well, let's try this your way. And then if it doesn't work, then we can try our way, but let's give it some time, because it's important that both parents are on the same page in guiding the kids as best as possible. Because when there's two parents with two different ways of handling difficult situations, it just creates a lot of havoc in the home.
And confusion for the kids.
Confusion, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
it really does. So you're 100% right. Like, communication across parents is really important. I was always the Disney dad. When we had kids in the very early on, like we had we had that conversation, and it was, okay, who's going to be the one that sits down with them, that sets the stage for homework and, you know, a regimen. I mean, you know, a routine and that kind of stuff. And, you know, who's going to be the one that lays the law down and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, with me, again, I was always the Disney dad, although I was the one who sat at the table with my kids at night. My daughter's sitting at the table crying, going, I don't want to do my homework anymore. I can't figure this out. And I'm like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get through it. We're going to stay up until we need to. And my mom was like that with me. See, so when we talk about impact, that had an impact on me, right? Having a huge heart had an impact on me because my mom did with me. It's the actions that we take, right? So we learn a lot from the things that we go through, good, bad, and different, right? And I think it's looking for those. It's learning from those experiences that you may have gone through that weren't beneficial to you, but see, they were, because you learned from them and you realize you don't want to go through that again and or be that parent.
Yes.
And the other side, which is the good from that and wanting to instill, implement, integrate those things into your, you know, your family life. So I think setting at early days, like setting those types of expectations are good. My wife is the one that lays the law down. You know, it's just a mom thing. I don't care what anybody says. It is definitely a mom thing. Like, mom is law. If mom can look at you one way and it's a gift, 100%. I mean, my mom was that way. My wife has been that way. Like, it's amazing. But you know, I think you mentioned something really important too, Purvi, like where the communication part is really important. So like I was Disney dad, right? I was the fun, always whatever up until the teens, right? And I told my wife that I'm like, this is what's going to happen. Because she basically, when we got our kids, held up our baby and said, what is this? And what do I do with it? Right. She just, parenthood was really new, and it wasn't something that she was ever thought she would be until she met me. And she's the most incredible mother on the planet. And I said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be Disney dad, if you will, from birth until teen. And then I guarantee you there's going to be a switch that happens where you're going to take the reins, because from business perspective, she was a GM in retail, and everyone that ever worked with her was the teeny bop drama queens. And so she was used to every day dealing with that. She was mother hen, and she was really, really good at it. But the early baby part, like, and she was an incredible mom. She's, again, just incredible. But the flips, like the switches had been flipped. So I think it's just setting expectations. You work together, and, you know, your relationships with your kids, they change over time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they really do. It's crazy. You don't really think about these kind of things. I mean, I was daddy's, you know, there was daddy's girl type thing, and my son and my wife were really close. And then you know, when my daughter kind of turned into early teens, like any teen, especially girls, it's like, you know,
More
they know
mom.
yeah, and they know everything, and as most teens do. And and yeah, and her and mom like really bonded, which was amazing. And yes, it broke my heart a little bit, but I knew it would happen, and it was an important thing to happen. And then my son and I, so like there was this flip-flop type thing, but
Mm-hmm.
for the good, right? And when you notice those things, right, it's like going on the field, and you know, you look at the part of the field to where you're going to kick the ball, not where the ball is now. And so I think just paying attention to them, again, is the most important thing. And it's really easy for us to get caught up in work and life and living, and, you
Mm.
know, just trying to take care of the mundane everyday things, you know, that we get caught up in really
Right.
easily. um
I hear
yeah.
you. So I'm curious what your perspective on this. Do you think technology helps families? And do you think with an app like FamTyme can help families emotionally connect better with one another? Or would it create more problems?
I think what you're doing is incredible, Purvi, and I think it can help so many families. Um, I have been in the tech world. I've been on the internet since it was green screen and chat rooms, sitting on my mom's lap, learning how to type. Like I've been entrenched in it from the very beginning,
Mm,
um, and it's benefited me. Um, I think it's a different time and age today. The kids that are growing up with literally popping out of their parents with devices in their
mm,
hands, like they're like literally born with phone in their hand. And I think that there are good mediums and there are not good mediums. I think it's important to qualify time to certain things, which, again, what you're doing, again, I think it's incredible to bring people together. I mean, you know, growing up when I did, we didn't have that kind of technology. You know, we'd be going out and riding our bikes to go see our neighbors. Today, kids are on gaming systems in chat groups talking to each other, and that's how they're hanging out, you know, a lot more than the physical, if you will. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because I do believe in the power of hand-eye core. I mean, I grew up playing video games too. I mean, like, there is power in that. There is actually good that comes from that, in terms of hand-eye coordination. And, you know, you want to make sure it's not overextensive in terms of the
mm-hmm.
amount of time that you're spending doing that. But and I'm going to talk about things in broad strokes and narrow in a little bit. You know, my kids, just again, bringing it back as an example as a parent, I am very socially active. Anybody that knows me knows I am on LinkedIn every single day, pretty much all day. I mean, it's what I do. It's what I love. And I have always been that way, even when I was working for other companies and not being the founder and CEO of my own. However, I have always been on socially, because I think this is an important thing too, because social media and kids is a huge challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I I had, up until literally just recently, with my daughter, again, who's going to be 19, no social media for my kids. I made a very hard stance in the line and said,
Wow.
no. Now, we gave them phones, and this is another one that comes up as parents, which is like, what's the right age to give our kids a phone? The challenge the scary thing is in this day and age, I mean, you can pull apps up and see where pedophiles live literally so close to you. It's the scariest thing on the planet, right? The fact that we're able to see that is incredible and scary at the same time, right? So you want to make sure you can communicate with your kids for emergency purposes and anything. You want to know where they are, make sure you guys are communicating, right? You want to make sure they're safe. That's the biggest reason why we want our kids to have a
Right.
phone, and kind of device or whatever. But kids are kids. And if it's not just a dial on the phone, which they don't even exist anymore unless you have them from the old days, you've got a computer in your hand and you can pretty much find everything. Now, yes, they give you the ability to block things and set, there's software that's helped. But again, I came with purpose. I went to Facebook with a purpose. I went to LinkedIn with a purpose. And I try to explain that to them along my journey, because we caught them when they had phones get on different social platforms. And I was like, no way, this is not happening. You don't know what you're doing. More importantly, you don't realize that this will stay forever. Once it is hit the web, it is there forever. And you don't want to hurt yourself or potentially tarnish yourself for something in the future, and you may not even remember that you did in the past. They weren't happy about that, took their phones away, for a bit, and they wound up getting them back. But, and it's hard, again, being as social as I am, because they put that against me and would be like, Dad, you're on all the time. And I'm like, yes, but see, I'm on with purpose, because when I'm on and I talk about you, my monkeys, I am always talking about you, my monkeys, and the journeys we're going on, the fun we're having, the great things you're doing, all that. I am shining a positive light on your life and what you're doing. It's not you hanging out with your buddies, doing something you shouldn't be doing, being stupid, pulling your phone out and capturing it on camera. I don't want you to get into a situation where you're not able to think, or you're overcome by your peers to do something you may or may not want to do, or whatever. Again, it's really hard being a kid, social pressure, all those things. But I do believe that there is good technology. And again, FamTyme, I think FamTyme is incredible. And I think parents and kids coming together and remembering the importance of family and family time, and coming back to that, because again, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day. It's easy to not pay attention to what your kids are doing and how much time they're spending on their devices and all that stuff, right? Bring it back to the roots and the core and the importance of family, because you are family. And change is good and may not be easy, but you take the steps and you keep taking the steps. And then when you do that, you start to realize, and what was once before so important, oh, I've got to be on my phone right now, I've got to be doing this, I can't miss this game, whatever. You kind of forget about that and remember, I was fine before and I'm fine after it. You remember what's important.
Right. Yeah, I think technology has its good and it has its bad, but it just depends on how we use it to benefit us in the long run, because it can either use us or we can use it.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
And lastly, I'd love to know, what is one parenting tip that you think every parent could benefit from or could incorporate into their family, into their home, that would better their environment?
As parents? Yeah, I mean, I've kind of said it before, but, just love your kids. Show your kids that you love them. Spend time together. Do things together. Every family is different. Every environment is different. What works for one family may not work for another, and that's okay. You find those things that work great for you. But I don't know, doing things together, I think it's a great thing. And when I say together, like, together means if you have two kids, right, and two parents in the house, or one parent, it doesn't matter. Like, spend that quality time with both and spend that quality time with each, because you
Mm,
have a relationship with both and you have a relationship with each. And that one-on-one time is really important. And I make it a point to do that with both my kids. They both have their own activities that they're involved in. So I love to be there to support both of them in their own activities, and them doing the same for each other, which I
mm,
think is important too. Um, but yeah, just look, I mean, the most important thing you can do is just show up.
mm-hmm. I think
Show up.
the whole loving your kids. I mean, I grew up with parents that never expressed themselves. They weren't very emotional, and we never actually uttered the word love up until once we got older. And then, I would say I love you to them. And then they would, and it was just never something that they did or knew how to. But I can see the importance of just saying I love you. Like, no matter what happens, no matter what you do, I love you. And that will carry over to them, with them forever, because those words, knowing that their parents are there for them regardless of the mistakes that they make or the things that they get themselves into, that the parents are going to be there supporting them, loving them, and just being there. Such an important gift to give to any child.
It is, and honestly, a gift to give to any human being.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people. I mean, as parents, gosh, we question what we do every single day. My God, am I screwing up my kid's life? Oh, how are they? Did I just do something that's going to affect them forever? Like,
Mhm.
we question everything, and then I think the best part is we see them do something, or we hear about them doing something, and it's like, wow,
I've done
you
something
know,
good. I mean, that
yeah,
letter that
right.
you just read, amazing.
Well, yeah, and my daughter, I mean, she's always, been an overachiever, and again, she's the one who has to work for every inch. I mean, she's like me. She just there's no she has to work for
Yeah.
all of it, and pushes and will succeed. Like, her determination is ridiculous.
Mm,
Um, but I think there's so many things that have happened where, to that point, right? It's those moments, right? It's those moments. It's the moment where you see, if your kids may fight all the time or whatever, but then you see that moment where they're hanging out on the couch and they're looking at something and they're laughing together and they're hanging on each other, whatever. And it's like doing something right. That moment where your kid creates a group at school because one of the teachers and her kid and his kids die in a tragic car accident, and creates a group that is literally there to help support those kids
right.
and parents, and bring people together. Creating a program to put sticky notes in the bathroom that have all positive affirmations, so that when you walk in, you can take one or you can give one or whatever. Like, that's my daughter. And as an example, right? Like, that's my why, is to inspire one person a day. Anybody on LinkedIn knows that. And if that's, putting a smile on somebody's face, or making somebody feel good when they don't, or, inspiring someone who inspires someone else, or getting up after you've fallen 50,000 times and doing it again, knowing that is succeeding. Like, any one of those things,
Mm,
for any human being, one person a day, like, I've accomplished my mission to make the world a better place, because I believe there's so much more good than bad in the world. We just don't hear enough of it. We don't see enough of it. And for my daughter to do what she did on her own is a testament to what I was saying, where our kids see and hear and pay attention to what we do and what
yes.
we say.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's like I said, there's no handbook for this thing. Just
No,
show up and love your kids. And if you do that,
it's
you're doing it right. Everything else will work itself out.
I agree. It's one of the hardest jobs, one of the least paying jobs,
Yes.
but it is the most impactful job that you'll ever have in another human being's life.
It
So
is. It's a gift. It's a gift we're given. Like, it's an incredible gift.
it's a
And I, and
blessing.
I and I think that's, to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Again, it's easy to not, because the stress and all that. But if you remember, it's a gift. Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining me and sharing a little bit about your journey and your experience. Can you let our community know where they can reach you if they ever want to learn more about the work that you do?
Yes. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your show. Like, I love you to pieces. I love what you're doing. I love FamTyme, and you're just such an incredible human being. You have the biggest heart. So I'm so happy for you and for what you're doing for others, because I know how much this means to you. And I know what an impact it is and will continue to make for generations to come. So thank you for being you. In terms of being able to find me, LinkedIn is my home. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can search for the hashtag Voice Your Vibe. You can find me at linkedin.com/in/Brian Schulman. You can always email me at Brian with an I at voiceyourvibe.com. Those are the best ways to find me. If you want to find me on Facebook too, you can. You'll see lots of stuff about my monkeys and anything that makes you laugh and smile and cry in a good way.
Love it.
But those are the best ways to find me. And look, if you ever want to chat too, you can schedule some time with me. It's Calendly, CALENDLY.com/voiceyourvibe. It's integrated in my calendar, so you literally just go on there and it's a couple questions, and we can absolutely chat. Would love to.
Awesome. I'll include it in the show notes so that way people can get a hold of you. And if any parents want to talk to you and get some, tips in regards to Tourette's or anything in general, I'm sure you are able to provide them with some wonderful tips. So thank you again for joining me and sharing your life and your experiences with our community. And I sincerely appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Purvi. I appreciate you too. I'm sending you a big hug.